Welcome back to another episode of The Next Step, the podcast where we share real stories of resilience, adaptation, and overcoming life's biggest challenges. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. I'm a bilateral amputee myself, and today's guest has an incredible story of courage, service, and perseverance. My guest today is Captain David Cantrel, a retired U.S. Navy veteran who spent 30 years in combat, dedicating his life to servicing his country. After an incredible military career, David was enjoying retirement when a motorcycle accident changed everything. 3 years after leaving the service, he was airlifted to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and eventually he underwent a below-the-knee amputation. At first, David struggled with anger, depression, and the difficult question of why me. But thanks to his wife, his rock, who found the right support groups, rehabilitation programs, and the best physiotherapy options available, David found his way forward. Today he's snowboarding, playing golf, and proving that life doesn't stop after amputation. It simply takes a new direction. We'll talk about his military career, his journey through recovery, and the lessons he's learned along the way. So David, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Kevin, and I appreciate you including me in your series that you're doing.
Yeah, listen, great. It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to talking to you for a while. It's been, it must be about a month almost now since I talked to you last time. David, before we dive into the journey post-accident, let's talk a little bit about your military career. It's quite inspiring, and what really inspired you to join the U.S. Navy?
My father, we were country people, we're Midwest. My father's hobby wasn't golf or fishing, it was farming. Cattle, it was cattle. He was insurance and real estate, but cattle. And so we worked all the time. And he always instilled service and sacrifice into all three of his kids. He served in the Navy during Korea conflict, and he would share some of the good stories. And he was a dental tech on a ship that was deployed into Korea. But when they got to go ashore, he was a bartender at the O Club, and he always talked about the officers and how good a time they had and the pretty girls they had. So he said, when you go in, you want to be an officer.
Yeah, and you actually became an officer, a captain actually in the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
What that role is quite significant in terms of leadership and authority and responsibility. You probably had to make some really critical decisions, David, in national security. True?
Yeah. Of course, in any position like that, especially when you deploy and you're in combat and you're responsible for their lives, those decisions have great deal of gravity to them. And I was very fortunate. I got all our guys back. I was a spec ops guy, so meaning I was an EOD officer. So we jumped, we dove, we shot. And we weren't the door kickers, but we were professional demolition guys and ordnance and so forth. And so I tell you that because our business had a lot of risk associated with it, and we did other things as far as security measures that put us in risk. So I was just very fortunate.
Hey, David, were you a commander of like an aircraft carrier, a destroyer, or something like that?
No. Special operations, usually have a group of 10 to 15 guys.
Okay.
That you're, especially as a junior officer, the more senior you get, you become more administrative, and you're pushing out those teams that you were once leading.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah, we were always, the ships took us where we needed to go, or aircraft took us where we needed to go, but we were mainly land-based.
Okay. You ever been on a submarine?
We have. We went through a lockout of a submarine. That was 2 weeks, and that's about as much as I want to be on a submarine. Got a lot of respect for the men and women on those, but that's not my jam.
Yeah, no, I've been on one just, kind of a tourist type that's docked. Never been down on the water or anything, but it's kind of spooky, really. Yeah, I can't imagine being on one. Did you are there any combat missions that you led and you're allowed to talk about?
Oh, I can just tell you, Desert Storm, we were one of the first groups in and last groups out, and we did a lot of work following post Desert Storm. I wouldn't call it combat, but we were doing some pretty serious stuff with Kuwaiti divers, showing them how to defuse munitions that were still left on their beaches and destroying weapons caches that we had intel that we'd go out and find. So, I mean, the war was over, but we were still doing a lot of dangerous stuff. And then Iraqi freedom, enduring freedom, we kind of fleeted up to a sea lift command where we were in charge of the Kuwait Naval Base, the pier, the mole pier there, where the all of the ships, the merchant vessels came in with the medicine, weapons, clothes, food. And so our job was port security, which was probably my largest job. My biggest job, I had 125 people in my command.
Oh boy.
And so it was a great job, fantastic final commanding officer job. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. What an exciting career, and thank you for your service. And I mean, I'm Canadian, but I think the Canadian military works very closely with the U.S. military on a lot of these things. But listen, you're a captain, and then you retired, and what were those first few years like after retirement?
It was that's that question. I was really looking at that one, and it was great not have to go do things, to have some freedom. But I tell you what, I think I would have changed. I think I would have changed or turned in the freedom for that camaraderie. I really miss my people.
Yeah,
I miss the black and white of military. It's cut and dried what you're doing. You have a mission, and everyone is on board with that mission, and I just miss that. I just miss that kind of sense of one direction and everybody being together. I
yeah,
really I love my personnel, and I think they like me, and we had really good times. We did our jobs. We didn't lose any equipment. We didn't get anybody shot.
right.
We came home with everything we needed to come home with, and I just miss that sense of purpose, if you will.
Well, David, I've never worked with you, or I've never, I don't know you that well, but you can tell that you're a respected leader. You can tell just by, some of the stories that you've been telling. Hey, listen, 3 years after that, after you retired, that's when everything kind of changed for you. And what happened at that point, David?
Well, just in brief, it was a Sunday, uh, June 9th of 2019. It was a Sunday. We just got back from the lake. I mowed the yard. A beautiful day. It's probably about 76 degrees, and I decided to cap the day off. I wanted to do a sunset ride on my Harley, and and so I told my wife as I'm going for a ride, I jumped on it, and I had to go through town a little bit to go to my favorite route, which is way out in the country. And in doing so, unfortunately, a gentleman ran through the parking lot and crossed over 4 lanes and hit me, basically T-boned me, but at a little bit of an angle. And because of that angle and because of the inertia of the impact, I was going one way and he was going the other. It basically just ripped my leg off.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. I've heard several stories about people being on motorcycles and getting in an accident and their legs are amputated. It's really tragic. I can't even imagine that experience. So you were airlifted to a hospital, and do you remember anything about that experience?
Well, at first they had to take me to the local hospital because I'd lost about 5 pints of blood, sitting there bleeding out. And I asked someone, I don't remember any faces, but I do remember barking out a few commands like I was back in service again.
Yeah,
Call 911, call my wife. And I asked whoever, I said, please put a tourniquet on my leg before I bleed to death. And I remember a guy saying, I'm an off-duty EMT. I'll secure your leg until they get here. And being EMT, you knew he was medically trained, and he used the word secure, which resounded to me.
Yeah.
Probably had some kind of field ops training. And he did. He put that tourniquet on my leg and probably saved my life. I got to ER and they incubated me, and it put a lot of blood in me, and enough to where they could airlift me up to St. Louis, where where they were better prepared for this kind of traumatic injury.
Wow, like you did 30 years in the military, a lot of combat, and quite a career, and you lose your leg after you retire on a motorcycle. That just is it's astounding. So you lose your leg and they rush you to the hospital. What's going through your mind at that point? What's your initial reaction when they tell you you're gonna lose your leg?
Um, I knew I was going to lose my leg. I saw my leg when I woke up on the road. I saw my leg. It was completely wide open. It was severed. I could see it was splintered. I knew I lost my leg then. Um, the plane ride was difficult because I fought everybody who had hands on me because I thought I was going to die.
Right.
Anyway, and so it was difficult, but the airman, the medic was like, David, you gotta calm down. You gotta calm down. My blood pressure was racing, and it was just, there, even the pilot's like, you gotta calm down. I was, and for whatever reason, I just started praying.
Yeah.
And the guy said, just whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I was praying silently because I didn't want to die.
Hmm.
Had kids and a wife, and it just was too quick. So that was, I'm sorry to get emotional. I always
That's
do.
okay.
Freaking 5 years later, and I still struggle with that. Just remembering that traumatic time because I thought that was it. After all the fry that we'd been in and overseas and everything else, so many chances of that happening,
Yeah.
and then out of the blue on a beautiful day going 24 miles an hour on my Harley, that was the closest I came to death.
Yeah. And David, it's always good to, be emotional about these things. Some of us hold it inside and it doesn't let you grieve. And a lot of people do grieve when they lose a body part like this. So it's okay. And I still do. I'm pretty new to it too. I lost both my legs just, last year. So I get pretty sad and down about it. In fact, when I lost my first leg, they told me I was going to lose my leg. I kept lifting the blanket and talking to my leg and saying goodbye to my leg before they did the operation. That's how emotional you kind of get.
Yeah.
You struggled with a little bit of anger and depression, right, David? And help me. It helped you start moving kind of forward through that, right?
Yeah, it just kind of remind me of the grieving processes you go through when somebody you love dies. It's a realization, and then anger sets in. And everybody deals with pain and loss a little differently. I was just angry. I mean, I was only 57, and I still had a long ways to go, and I still had so many things I wanted to do. And I just thought that was kind of this was ending all of that. And that's what you think. You're in a really dark place, and you're not prepared. I don't care how much training you've been through. I don't care what you've done in your life or what you've experienced or been trained for. Nothing really prepares you for that. And so you're not exactly sure how to handle it. But fortunately, I did have some good training on adversity and challenges, and that did help eventually. But initially, it was just really, really bad. really
Well,
took.
and your wife really helped you through that. She's amazing by the sounds of it, and tell me how she supported you.
Well, her name's Stacy, and she always told me it didn't matter what I got promoted to. She was always one step above me. So she was the admiral, and she was everything. She only her true love and commitment to me shined. And the only way that she could have done what she did is if she truly did love me and was committed to that. And she listened to me when I needed her to. She was my caregiver. She's
Mhm.
better than any of the nurses. When she would just say, "Let me give that to me, I'll do it." So it was just her and I, and because she knew I'm a proud man, arrogantly so, too proud. And there was times where she would read to me, she would uh, read scripture, and then a lot of times she was my drill sergeant. I was feeling sorry for myself. She wouldn't freaking take it. She knew when to do the right things for me. That's how well she knew me. And without her, I just don't know. Just don't know.
Well, it sounds like she brought you through, and that's why you survived. She found like support groups and rehab centers and those types of things, a physiotherapist. I know my wife was the same way. She showed up at the hospital almost every day. She brought me food into the hospital because I didn't like the hospital food, but she did the same thing. She'd read, she'd let me hug her when I was sad and crying. Um, just there for them. And we always forget the people that support us most. They go through a lot when we feel like this kind of tragedy happens. Those resources that your wife found, how impactful was it to your recovery?
Well, thank God for the internet. She just jumped on there and started, when I was sleep passed out from morphine or whatever, she spent time researching and preparing to find things to give me hope,
Right.
and to show me I'm not the only one out there. And in fact, there's a lot of people out there a lot worse than I am. But that's not what I was really cared about, at that time. But she did, and she kept people. I had a lot of people that wanted to come visit, and she knew I wasn't ready for that. She was very good about only letting in a select few
Yeah.
people.
Back to you.
Apologize to them, but anyway, she found things that I would eventually start to read. We were in there for a month and a half because of several different surgeries. So we had a lot of time. And by the time I left there, in my mind, I kind of had a plan on what I was going to do once I got my prosthetic.
Okay. So you said several surgeries. Like what? Was there complications?
Well, in the traumatic surgery like I had, I was dragged across the road, for a
Right.
while. I had severe, I was banged up. I still have, we got marks all over my body from the burns, from the scrapes that were very deep.
Oh,
And there was a lot of dirt and debris inside of my open leg. And so they had to do a lot of debridements to clean that out. When I say a lot, they had to do 7 debridements. And basically they open your leg up and power wash it. And then
wow.
they after a day they test it to see if there's still any infection. And if there's anything, they do it again. And it took 7 of those. And
Yeah.
I have experienced a lot of pain, none like those.
Yeah. That sounds
None like those.
incredibly painful. Your experience in the military, did that teach you, the importance of having a strong support system? How did that help?
Well, I mean, the only way I got to make captain was because of a strong support system. I had great people working with me, working for, I don't ever want to really say for me because I was just one of the personnel in my mind. I know they had to call me captain, skipper, whatever, but I was engaged. I wouldn't have asked them to do anything I didn't do. And they were a lot of times a lot smarter than I was. So my success is completely due to them.
Yeah.
But I did learn a lot about teamwork and that what you can accomplish that way, and the safety that you have in numbers versus being the stray. So anyway, yeah, that helped me a lot.
Yeah, one of the things I found is the people that showed up, right? You're surprised at who doesn't and who does. And for me, anyway, um, some of my closest friends, they told me later that they just didn't know what to say, so they didn't show up. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really sad. I mean, you could have just come and said anything, right? But my wife also kind of protected me because I didn't want a lot of visitors in the hospital and whatnot. And for me, David, like rehabilitation was really important. Like, I went to a really good rehab center, and they not only helped me learn how to walk on my prosthetic, but there's a lot of it, it's physical and a lot of work physically to exercise your upper body and whatnot, but it's mentally exhausting too. What was your biggest challenge? Was it more on the physical side, the mental side? Can you talk a little bit about your challenge?
Well, I had a really great rehab program at SSM up in St. Louis, and right away after the first day, I was leaving, and they said, "We'll see." It was Monday, was my first day, and I was doing 3 days a week because I was driving 2 hours to go to it, and they said, "We'll see you Wednesday, Captain Push," and I was like, turning around, it's like Captain Push. I guess because I said push like 12 more times, 12 times through the 3 hour period, because I knew if I stopped, I wanted to push through, because if I
Yeah,
stopped, that depression or that woe is me would settle in, and I wouldn't want to get back up and going again because it was freaking painful.
yeah,
But they were a great group of people. They were always so positive and so helpful, and they did really help me accelerate my recovery and get to where I could start walking and kind of caring for myself again.
yeah. And you probably worked out every day, right?
Well, I would do things in between. I would want to do upper body stuff, not just leg
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
'Cause I lost a lot of, I was pretty well built, and I lost a lot of that laying in a hospital bed
yeah,
and felt, you just
yeah.
you
You
feel
do.
crap. So
Yeah, yeah,
I said, "Hey, can I go over here and do some, pull downs and pushes?" They're like, absolutely.
yeah.
And so I would go do that. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife actually brought my weights into my room, and I would lay in bed and just lift the weights and
Yeah.
do exercises there because the gym that I was at, like for the rehabilitation center, was very busy, so sometimes you couldn't get in, but that's how I did it.
I,
Hey,
I highly recommend bands
yeah,
too.
those bands are
You can
great,
you
right?
can sit in your chair or on your stool
Yeah,
and just, there's a lot you can do with bands. So
yeah, yeah,
invest in those. And
yeah.
most of the rehab places give you bands.
They do, yeah, and it was really good. So hey, I'm sitting here right now and I'm just like going, I'm shaking my leg because I'm feeling the phantom pain in my leg, my left leg right now. Do you get phantom pain and how do you manage it?
Well, I initially I had phantom pain, like I was just like, there's no way people run track and climb mountains with prosthetics and deal with this. And it came to find out I had a very rare case of isotropic ossification, which is where your bone actually starts to grow. So where they had amputated my bone, I had, if you'd think about a witch's fingers, I had witch's fingers coming out of my bone that finally reached the end of my nub. So I was
Mm.
walking on that bone. I thought it was
Ouch.
phantom pain, but it was not. And so I dealt with that for about a year before I finally said enough. And I found a surgeon. Fortunately, he was in St. Louis, and he was a vascular orthopedic surgeon, and went to see him, and he took the x-rays. He's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty rare, Dave. And he said, I can help you. He spent 11 hours on my leg,
Wow.
and pulling nerves down, cutting them so they rescinded up into my leg, fixed,
Yeah.
he had to completely take off what they had done initially, took a big strap of meat off my left thigh, and to put the flat back over the leg. And that was in 2000, December of 2001, and I'm 2021, and I've been pretty solid ever since.
Yeah, so no pain, the bone's not still growing then?
Occasionally I'll get, like you hit your elbow, and
Right.
you'll jump a little bit, but not to where I have to take any kind of medication for it.
Okay, good, good. My phantom pain is a little different. I don't even call it pain, because I don't find it painful, but it's like my foot is still there. My foot's throbbing a little bit, and I'm like, I have no toes. Why are they
Yeah.
cold?
Yeah.
So
It's funny. It's funny. I feel like I can still move my toes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Sometimes I'm laying in bed and I'm trying to like, kick my feet so the blanket will move and my legs aren't there to kick it. So
yeah.
it's very strange feeling, I know. Hey, what about everyday tasks? Do you find anything difficult around the house and doing things every day since things have happened, and how have you kind of adapted at home?
No, I can do most things at home. We have staircase going down and up, and I'm not a big fan of those. But you just have to be careful. You just have to
Yeah.
avoid the falls. That's our nemesis is falls, because those usually wind up to other things. I mean, it's, taking showers and, all the stuff
Yeah.
that everybody has to do. I was very fortunate. I had good friends back home. When I got home, there was already safety bars in the
Oh,
bathroom
great.
and in the shower, and in places where I would need them.
Yeah.
It's, you're watching TV, you got your leg off. Is it a pain to get up and go use the head or get something to drink? Yeah, but it just becomes part of the life.
Yeah, it's just that's how I found. I found it really frustrating trying to put my legs on to go get a glass of water. And then I get my water, I come and sit down and I'd be like, hang on, I forgot my muffin or whatever it was out in the kitchen. And I'd have to go back, right? One of the things I find hard, Dave, is when I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and sometimes I am because I just can't walk anymore. It's too painful. I've burnt myself twice on the stove. And it's one of the things that you have to be really careful of because when you're in your wheelchair, you're so much lower and things are different perspectives. So I reached across that I burnt my arm twice. You'd think I'd learned the first time, right?
Yeah.
Listen, if somebody were kind of going through this and they're just beginning their, rehab journey, do you have any advice for them?
Um, yeah. Um, Reach out.
Yeah,
You don't try to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to say this in a callous way, but you're not the first. You're not alone.
right,
This is not a club anybody wants to be in. But the
right.
people that are in this club, very sympathetic, they're very intelligent. They've experienced anything that you're experiencing, they've already experienced it. I found great help and education with the National Association, what's that? The Amputee Coalition.
Yes, a lot of
Uh,
people talk about
they have
that.
they have an annual meeting that's good to attend. You can see the latest and greatest. I'm a super active guy still. I play pickleball. I'm a pretty decent pickleball player. I just got back from Breckenridge with my daughter. We
Yeah.
snowboard, and I don't mean greens. I mean I go double black diamond uh,
Wow.
on the snowboard. Next March, her and I are attending a surf camp in in Costa Rica called Witches Rock because I was a good surfer and I plan on being a decent surfer again. And I think if you just set expectations, just like when you work out, you scale to the weights that you can do. This is the same thing. You gotta scale to the activities that you love. Don't quit them. Just
Right.
know that you're not going to be as good as you were,
Right.
most likely, but at least you can still do them. And that's what you have to accept. And once you do accept that, then you're going to enjoy it again.
Yeah, that's you know, you're really inspiring when I talk to you. You know, you would live the real very active life. You've had a very active career or action filled. And now you lose your leg and you're right back at it. You just don't stay still. And I think you even golf. Last time I talked, you were talking
Yeah.
about golfing, and
Yeah, I
that's
golf
my
a lot. And one of your questions was, when did you think that you kind of made it?
yeah.
2 years ago. Uh, the other thing is your friends have to quit looking at you as as they need to look at you like you were before the accident. And I've got a great group of friends that we always go on a golf trip together. I think they initially were reluctant to ask me because they didn't want me to feel sad because I couldn't
Yeah.
go. I said, hell
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
And it was in Montego Bay, and a guy had a place, and we played golf just about every day. And with the exception of one day, I kicked their butts. And and actually, in my best day, I shot a 77. Should have been a
Oh,
74. But I'm just so I was like, they're like, you're it's unbelievable. We're not feeling sorry for you anymore. And I said, I never asked you to.
yeah,
And
no.
don't.
It's one of my goals, David, is to play golf again. I used to play like, you know, 3, 4 times a week if I could. And this summer I'm going out to the driving range, and like you say, you're not going to be as good as what you used to be, but why not just give it a try, right? And that's what I feel. And I'm still in rehab, and they're teaching me how to swing my club and and
Yeah.
do things like that. I'm really looking forward to it. The one thing I say to my friends though is now I have an excuse when I whale it into the woods, right? So yeah, I never used to have that. Hey, was there ever a moment where you said, "Hey, I'm back. I'm better now, and I'm ready to go"?
Well, that was kind of it. What I shared with you about the golf.
Okay.
When I got back in the state, because I was a scratch golfer, I could shoot even par about most everywhere I went, and
Yeah.
I'm a 9 now, but I'm on a good day I could be a 5 or 6.
Wow.
And just this recently, this trip I took with my daughter, who pushes me quite a bit. She's just like me in a female's body. She's 30 years old, and she got me to climb to the top of this. It's called Serenity, and you got off the lift, and you still had to hike up another quarter of a mile just to get to the top to take this run, which was a double diamond, expert only. And
Yeah.
I got up there, and I said, if I get down from this in one piece, I'm going to have words with you. And
Oh,
but we went down together, and it just I continue to prove to myself that this really isn't going to stop me. Do I need to be, I don't tell my wife that I did that because she would probably hit me over the head with the frying pan. Um, but but I can still do it. It is within you.
yeah.
It's within you, and at the same time, it's within your safety parameters
Yeah.
of what you can try and do.
So is there
And
anything you haven't done, David, after I mean,
well, the
you're doing it
surfing,
for 5 years, right?
the surfing is the next biggest deal because, like I said, I
Okay.
was a good surfer. We went all over Mexico, Fiji, all of California and stuff. I was out in San Diego for a better part of 20 years and Coronado, so I surfed a lot, and I haven't been on a board since. And so this surfing safari next March
Yeah.
in in Costa Rica, which
Okay.
is rock.
Right.
That's my next goal.
Oh, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I've got to really, like, you're inspiring me to do more. I thought my life was kind of restricted here, but I think golf is first, but I've got to do some bigger things by the sounds of it. Hey,
Well, the thing I put down here was it's step by step. I
yeah,
mean,
step by step.
we didn't learn how to be a Navy diver or a jumper or anything. There was a lot of preparation that went into that, and there was a lot of thought process and training. And you can't just jump into it. I'm not a patient guy, so
Yeah,
this has been God. I'm not saying God did this to me, but God knew I needed this to be a better man, really, to be a
yeah,
more patient man, to be a more sympathetic, to be more grateful,
right.
grateful, still freaking alive and
Yeah,
still doing these things. And so when you do want to try something, I just say scale
right.
step by step
Step by
and be
step.
patient. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good advice. And when you talk about just giving things a try, you've got to do it within the safety boundaries and your capabilities as well.
And
Um,
not alone.
and
And
not
not
alone. Yeah. Hey, listen, yeah, so if you were to reflect a little bit and where you are today, I think it's been about 5 years. What do you wish you would have told yourself right in the beginning?
I just would have told myself it's going to be all right.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like um you don't do that in the beginning. You kind of like go through the grieving process. You get kind of sad and you wonder what your life is going to be like, and you start to tell yourself things are over, and really if you just think about it, we are very adaptive in life, and we can always move forward no matter what happens to us. So that's a good one. Somebody struggling with limb loss, uh, what would you say to them at this point? What's your key message?
Call me.
Calm?
Call me.
Oh, call you. Okay.
Call.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, you can give my number, my email address to anyone because I have found I have found great gratification in going to the hospitals, which one's right across from me. My prosthetist calls me and he'll tell me, "Hey, I've got a guy, just a new amputee. Would you go
Right.
talk to him?" And I've got a double amputee over at the hospital right now that I go see, and he's waiting to see if his leg's gonna. Right now, he's a below knee on both of them, but one's infected, and he may have to go to above knee, and he has no one. And so
Right.
I go sit with him and I've taken him some things that he likes. And I have found great gratification in helping others. So if you're in a situation and you have questions, which we all did,
Yeah.
and I still do,
Yeah.
I still look at a lot of things because legs are changing. I'm just waiting for him to come out with a foot that has that has flex, because I'd be a scratch golfer again if it
Yeah.
wasn't for uphill lies, downhill lies, and side lies, when you don't have flexion in your foot
Yeah.
for it to sit on the ground. But there's a lot of things that I can share with anybody, but but rely on your faith, your family, and
Yeah.
your friends, and don't sit back and wait for the answers to come to you.
Right.
Seek them out.
Yeah. Really good advice. And I like the idea of your faith, and, have faith and rely on your support team and your wife, your family, whatever it takes. The other thing you said is the gratitude. I find like I'm talking to a lot of people that are amputees, and one of the things that comes out as a theme is that it changed their life for the better. And it's kind of strange when you tell somebody that I'm a better person, I'm more grateful, I live in the moment now, and it does do that to you, but it takes a little time. Hey,
Yeah.
David, you're an amazing guy, and I really appreciate your story here today. I know it's going to help people, and It's been great talking with you. I hope to talk to you and have you on the show again.
Well, Kevin, what you're doing, it's got to give you some great satisfaction.
It does.
You're helping others. You're helping people open up. You can see 5 years later, actually, it'll be 6 years in June, on June 9th. It'll be 6 years. You see, you still get emotional because of the impact that it had on your life. And I'm not saying my life is better, but I am saying I am a better person
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it
things
makes sense.
things that it has taught me.
Yeah. Yeah, your life is different, but yeah, you do become a better person for
Yeah.
sure. And David, I always tell people that I'm doing this kind of selfishly because I get so much out of this, so much reward from interviewing people on the podcast and hearing their story. But I also run in this support group that people can join. If they go to limlossconnections.com, you'll be able to sign up for that virtual meeting that we have, and we just talk about challenges and wins that we have over a period of time. It's every 2 weeks, but some of the things that come out. One of the things just before we go, I was talking to a woman. Her name's Amy, and she lost her leg in a same thing, a motorcycle accident. And she said, I tried to ride a motorcycle afterwards, but I didn't feel safe enough on it. So she went and bought a Jeep. And that gives her the satisfaction of, the wind blowing in her hair and kind of the
Yeah.
freedom. But then she's kayaking now. She's deep sea diving. She used to be a diver, but she's still doing that with no leg. And nothing's slowing her down. And I really enjoy talking with her too. But your stories and your attitude reminds me of her as well. But thanks again, and I appreciate all your time today, David.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kevin. And good luck to everyone out there. God bless you.
David, your story is a reminder of how life can change in an instant, but also how strong we are in the face of adversity. Your openness about your journey, the struggles and the breakthroughs and the lessons you learned will inspire so many people who face similar challenges. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. For those listening, if you take one thing away from this episode, let it be this. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardship, but about how we rise after we fall. Whether you're in the early stages of recovery or years into your journey, remember that support is out there and you're not alone. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to The Next Step and share this podcast with someone who might benefit from it. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more inspiring stories from people in the limb loss and limb difference community. Thank you for joining us today, and as always, remember, every step forward, no matter how big or small, is a step worth celebrating. Take care, and we'll see you next time on The Next Step.